Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The champagne flute didn't just break. It shattered against the marble floor with the violence of a gunshot, mimicking the exact sound of Julian's heart ripping in two. You're barely a trophy anymore, Julian, let alone a partner. Elias sneered, his voice carrying over the din of the gala, ensuring every member of the city's elite heard the humiliation. I need an Omega who brings status, not a washed-up dancer with a mountain of debt and a limp. The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Before Julian could even draw a breath to defend the 3 years he had wasted on this man, Elias turned his back, signaling the security guards. Julian didn't wait to be escorted out. He turned on his heel, the phantom pain in his injured ankle flaring up in protest, and ran. He ran until the music faded, until the laughter died, and until he found himself in the one place where shadows dared to linger, the forbidden East Wing of the estate. The East Wing was legendary, rumors swirling that it belonged to the Viper of the North, a recluse billionaire alpha named Cassian Thorne, whose ruthlessness was only matched by his distaste for company. But tonight, the wing was silent, the heavy oak doors slightly ajar. Julian slipped inside, desperate for darkness, desperate to hide the tears that were ruining his mascara. The room he stumbled into was a private lounge, bathed in the silver glow of moonlight filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. It smelled of expensive leather, old books, and something sharper, ozone and cold rain. Pheromones. An alpha's territory. But Julian was too drunk on misery and the 3 glasses of wine he'd downed prior to the breakup to care. He tore off his bow tie, throwing it across the room. The silence was deafening, mocking him. He needed to move. He needed to feel something other than the crushing weight of rejection. He pulled his phone out, hitting play on a slow, heavy bass track he used for rehearsals. The music filled the heavy air. Julian closed his eyes. His ankle throbbed, but he ignored it. He began to move. It wasn't the polite waltz of the ballroom. It was a contemporary piece, raw and jagged. He spun, his body arching, shedding the persona of the perfect fiancé. He moved with a sinuous grace, hips swaying, arms reaching for a savior that wasn't there. He was a creature of grief, beautiful and broken. He didn't see the figure sitting in the high-backed velvet armchair in the deepest corner of the room. Cassian Thorne had been watching the intruder for 5 minutes. He should have called security. He should have crushed the boy for daring to enter his sanctuary. But the scent hitting him, wild jasmine and distressed honey, froze him in place. And then, the dancing started. Cassian gripped the armrests, his knuckles turning white. He had seen professional dancers, he had seen seducers, but he had never seen someone bleed their soul out into the air like this. Julian spun closer, eyes still closed, lost in the rhythm. The music swelled, a sultry, grinding beat. Julian dropped low, a move that tested his flexibility, his shirt riding up to reveal the pale, smooth skin of his waist. As he rose, he stumbled, the bad ankle giving way. He didn't hit the floor. A hand, large and scorching hot, shot out of the darkness, gripping Julian's waist. Julian gasped, his eyes snapping open. He wasn't alone. He was pressed against a chest as hard as granite. He looked up, and the air left his lungs. The man holding him was terrifying. Sharp jawline, eyes the color of molten gold, and a scar running through his left eyebrow that only added to his dangerous allure. Cassian Thorne. The Viper. Julian stammered, his hands instinctively resting on the alpha's broad shoulders to steady himself. The proximity was dizzying. I didn't know. You dance like a man begging to be devoured. Cassian's voice was a low rumble, vibrating through Julian's chest. He didn't let go. If anything, his grip tightened, pulling Julian into the V of his legs as he sat in the chair. Julian should have pulled away. He knew who this was. This was the man who ate companies for breakfast and destroyed bloodlines for sport. But the rejection from Elias was still a fresh wound, and the heat radiating from Cassian was a bomb he hadn't realized he craved. I was dumped, Julian whispered, a reckless, hysterical laugh bubbling in his throat. He leaned in, perhaps the alcohol, perhaps a death wish. He moved his hips slightly, a ghost of the dance still in his nerves. The friction against the alpha's thigh was electric. I'm just disposing of the trash. Cashin's golden eyes darkened to abyssal black. Is that what you think you're doing? Or not? Julian tilted his head, the adrenaline masking his fear. He traced the lapel of Cashin's suit. Or am I trespassing in the viper's nest? You're trespassing, Cashin growled, but he didn't push the Omega away. Instead, his hand slid up Julian's spine, tangling in his hair, forcing his head back to expose the long, elegant line of his throat. And usually, trespassers don't leave in one piece. But you've trapped yourself, haven't you? Trapped? Julian breathed, his pulse hammering against the Alpha's hand. You started a dance, Cashin murmured, his nose brushing against the pulse point under Julian's ear, inhaling deeply. The scent of jasmine was driving his alpha instincts into a frenzy. And I never let a partner leave until the music stops. Before Julian could process the threat, or the promise, Cashin's lips crashed onto his. It wasn't a kiss, it was a conquest. It tasted of whiskey and dominance. Julian melted, his knees buckling, leaving him entirely supported by the Alpha's iron grip. For a moment, the world of debts, ex-fiancés, and broken dreams vanished, replaced by the overwhelming, consuming fire of Cashin Thorn. The morning sun was cruel. It sliced through the heavy velvet curtains, blinding Julian as he stirred. He reached out, expecting the cold, empty side of his shabby apartment bed. Instead, his hand brushed against silk sheets with a thread count higher than his credit score. Memory rushed back like a tidal wave. The gala. Elias. The East Wing. The Viper. Julian sat up, the sheet pooling at his waist. He was alone in a bed large enough to sleep a family of 4. The room was palatial, decorated in minimalist grays and blacks. You're awake. Julian flinched, pulling the sheet up to his chin. Cashin stood by the balcony door, fully dressed in a charcoal 3-piece suit that cost more than Julian's life. He held a tablet in one hand and a cup of black coffee in the other. He looked unaffected, regal, and terrifyingly composed. I should go, Julian croaked, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry about last night. I was drunk. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to grind your lap against a billionaire alpha and beg him to make you forget your name? Cashin took a sip of coffee, his eyes locking onto Julian's. Because you were very successful at it. Julian's face burned. I'll leave. Sit down, Julian Vane, Cashin ordered. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Julian froze. Cashin walked over to the bed, placing the tablet on the mattress. I looked into you while you were sleeping. Former principal dancer for the Royal Ballet. Career ended 2 years ago due to a sabotage incident involving glass in your shoes. Fired from 3 subsequent jobs. And yesterday, publicly discarded by Elias Sterling. Are you enjoying the biography of my failures? Julian snapped, a spark of defiance igniting in his chest. If you're done mocking me, I'd like my clothes. I don't mock, Cashin said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped under his weight. I invest. And right now, I see an opportunity. I'm not a prostitute, Julian hissed, clutching the sheet tighter. I don't need a whore. I need a husband. The silence that followed was absolute. Excuse me. Julian blinked. My board of directors is restless, Cashin explained, his tone clinical, as if discussing a merger. They believe a single alpha is unstable. They are trying to force a match with the daughter of a rival conglomerate. I need them to back off. I need a partner who is believable, presentable, and desperate enough to follow my rules. And you think I'm desperate? I know you are. Elias Sterling left you with the debt for the engagement party. You're facing eviction. And your ankle needs a surgery you can't afford if you ever want to dance without pain again. Cashin leaned in, the predator surfacing beneath the CEO facade. I will pay your debts. I will pay for the best surgeon in Zurich for your ankle. I will ruin Elias Sterling's business so thoroughly he will be begging for change on the street. All you have to do is wear my ring, live in my house, and pretend you belong to me for 1 year. Julian stared at him. It was a deal with the devil. He knew the stories. Cashin was cold, heartless. But then he remembered the heat of the man's hands last night, the way he had held Julian as if he were precious, even for a moment. And he remembered Elias's laugh as he walked away. Why me? Julian asked softly. You could have anyone. Because, Cashin's gaze dropped to Julian's lips, then back up. You are the only one who dared to enter my territory and didn't flinch when I showed my teeth. And because you're sent, it quiets the noise. Julian swallowed hard. Revenge. Security. A chance to heal. What are the rules? 1. Cashin held up a finger. Publicly, we are obsessed with each other. Privately, you stay out of my business. 2. You never see Elias again. 3. Cashin's voice dropped an octave. You don't fall in love. I don't do hearts, Julian. I own things. I protect things. I don't love them. Julian felt a chill, but he nodded. Deal. The first month was a war of attrition. Moving into Cashin's penthouse was like moving into a museum. Everything was cold, pristine, and silent. Julian was given a suite of rooms, a black card with no limit, and a schedule of social appearances. The media ate it up. The Fallen Swan and the Viper. It was the scandal of the decade. Julian played his part perfectly. At galas, he clung to Cashin's arm, gazing up at him with adoring eyes. He let Cashin guide him by the small of his back, let the alpha's pheromones cloak him, warding off any other suitors. But behind closed doors, the house was a battlefield. Cashin was distant, burying himself in work. He treated Julian with polite indifference, which infuriated Julian more than cruelty would have. Julian, in return, weaponized his presence. He practiced yoga in the living room wearing scant clothing, filled the sterile house with fresh flowers that clashed with the decor, and played his music loud enough to vibrate the walls. He was trying to get a reaction. He wanted the man from the first night back, the man who had looked at him with hunger. One rainy Tuesday, the tension snapped. Julian was in the kitchen, attempting to cook. He wasn't good at it. A pan flared up, triggering the smoke alarm. Cashin stormed in, shirt sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted and furious. He silenced the alarm and glared at the ruined, blackened mess on the stove. I have chefs, Cashin growled. Why are you trying to burn my house down? I wanted to make something myself. Julian shouted back, tossing the spatula into the sink. I'm bored, Cashin. I'm a trophy on a shelf. You barely look at me. I look at you constantly. Cashin shot back, the confession slipping out before he could stop it. Julian paused. What? Cashin stepped closer, crowding Julian against the counter. The air thickened with the scent of ozone and rain, heavy and turbulent. Do you think it's easy? Having you here? Smelling you on my pillows? Watching you prance around half-naked knowing I can't touch you because of a contract I wrote. Then tear it up, Julian challenged, his heart racing. Or are you afraid? I'm afraid, Cashin admitted, his voice rough, that if I start, I won't stop. And you are fragile, Julian. I am not fragile. Julian shoved Cashin's chest. I survived my career being shattered. I survived Elias. I don't need you to protect me from yourself. I need you to see me. Cashin caught Julian's wrists, pinning them to the counter. The restraint was palpable, a trembling tension in the alpha's arms. I see you. I see a wolf in swan's clothing. He released Julian abruptly and stormed out. But that night, for the first time, Julian found a small velvet box on his nightstand. Inside was an anklet made of white gold and diamonds. The note read, asterisk for the surgery. Schedule it, asterisk. It wasn't love, but it was care. And for Julian, that was more dangerous. The surgery was a success. 6 months into the contract, Julian was walking without a limp. He started dancing again, using the private studio Cashin had secretly built for him in the penthouse. The dynamic shifted. They weren't lovers, but they were no longer strangers. They ate dinner together. They debated art and politics. Julian learned that Cashin's ruthlessness came from a childhood where his own family tried to sell him off for shares. Cashin learned that Julian's diva attitude was armor for a boy who had always been told he wasn't enough. Then came the winter solstice masquerade. It was the biggest event of the year. Everyone would be there, including Elias Sterling. Julian dressed in a suit of midnight blue velvet, fitted so tight it felt like a second skin. He wore a silver mask that covered half his face. He looked ethereal and dangerous. Cashin wore black, as always, but he stayed close to Julian, his hand never leaving Julian's waist. He's staring. Cashin murmured into Julian's ear as they entered the ballroom. Julian didn't need to ask who. He could feel Elias's gaze like a slime on his skin. Let him stare. He's looking at what he lost. He's looking at what is mine, Cashin corrected, his grip tightening possessively. The evening was going smoothly until Cashin was pulled away by a senator for a private conversation. Julian went to the bar to get a water. "You look expensive, Julian." Julian stiffened. Elias stood behind him, looking disheveled. His business had been plummeting for months. Cashin's doing, and the stress showed. "Hello, Elias," Julian said coolly, turning around. "I'd ask how you are, but I can read the stock market reports." Elias sneered, grabbing Julian's arm. "You think you're safe? Thorn is a monster. He'll discard you just like I did once he's bored. Come back to me. I can forgive you." "Forgive me." Julian laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. "You destroyed me, Elias. And Cashin put me back together. He bought you." Elias spat, his grip bruising. "You're just a whore he keeps in a gilded cage. Let go of him." The voice didn't come from a human. It came from a nightmare. Cashin stood 10 feet away. He wasn't the CEO anymore. He was pure, unadulterated alpha aggression. The air in the ballroom dropped 10 degrees. Guests scattered, sensing the violence radiating from him. Elias faltered, but his ego was too big. "This is between me and my ex, Thorn." "Back off." "Your ex?" Cashin took a step forward. "You gave him up. You broke him. And now that he shines again, you want him back." Cashin moved faster than thought. One moment he was standing there, the next his hand was wrapped around Elias's throat, lifting the other man off the ground. "Cashin, stop!" Julian cried out, grabbing Cashin's arm. Not to save Elias, but to save Cashin from a murder charge. "He's not worth it." Cashin looked at Julian. His eyes were blown wide, black consuming the gold. He was on the edge of a feral frenzy. "He touched you." "I don't care," Julian said, stepping into Cashin's space, ignoring the terrified crowd. He cupped Cashin's face. "Look at me. I'm here. I'm yours." "He is nothing." The words cut through the haze. "I'm yours." Cashin dropped Elias, who crumbled to the floor, gasping for air. "If you ever look at him again," Cashin said, his voice a quiet death sentence to the room at large, "I will burn this entire city to the ground to find you." He wrapped his coat around Julian and let him out. The drive home was silent. The air in the car was thick with unspent adrenaline and pheromones. When they reached the penthouse, Cashin didn't go to his room. He marched Julian into the master suite, kicking the door shut. "You said it," Cashin breathed, backing Julian against the heavy wooden door. "In the ballroom. You said you were mine." Julian's heart hammered against his ribs. The fear was gone, replaced by a need so sharp it hurt. "I am. I think I have been since that first dance." "The contract," Cashin started, his voice breaking. "Burn it," Julian whispered. He reached up, pulling Cashin's tie loose. "I don't want a contract. I want the Viper." Cashin let out a groan that sounded like a surrender. He crushed his mouth to Julian's, lifting him up. Julian wrapped his legs around Cashin's waist, burying his face in the crook of the Alpha's neck. There was no gentleness this time. It was a collision of 6 months of repressed desire, of jealousy, of fear. They made it to the bed, tearing at clothes. "I tried to let you go," Cashin confessed against Julian's skin, his hands mapping every inch of Julian's body, worshipping the scars, the healed ankle, the curve of his hips. "I tried to keep you at arm's length so I wouldn't ruin you." "You didn't ruin me," Julian gasped as Cashin's teeth grazed his collarbone, marking him. "You saved me. Now claim me, Cashin. Make sure he knows. Make sure everyone knows." Cashin pulled back, looking down at Julian. The predator was there, but so was the man, the lonely boy who had been sold for shares. "I love you," Cashin said, the words rough and foreign on his tongue. "I will never let you go." "Good," Julian pulled him down. "Because I'm not planning on running." That night, the boundaries of the contract turned to ash. The trap Julian had accidentally set that first night had caught them both, binding them tighter than any legal document ever could. Epilogue. 3 months later, Julian walked into the boardroom, dropping a file on the table. Elias Sterling's company had officially been acquired by Thorn Enterprises. Elias was out, penniless. Cashin sat at the head of the table, a smirk playing on his lips as he watched his husband work. Julian leaned over Cashin's chair, pressing a kiss to the Alpha's temple in front of the entire board. The scent of jasmine and rain was perfectly balanced now, a mated pair. "Shall we go?" Julian whispered. "I have a new dance I want to show you." Cashin stood up, ignoring the stunned executives. Meeting adjourned. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. Or perhaps, how the swan finally learned to bite back. If you enjoyed seeing Julian take control of his destiny and his alpha, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a husband who tried to kill you, or would you let your new lover destroy him completely? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, Man 1. Julian, delicate but fierce features, silver masquerade mask pushed up on head, wearing deep blue velvet suit. Messy hair, sitting on a desk, looking down with a smirk. Man 2. Cashin, dominant alpha male, sharp jawline, scar on eyebrow. Wearing charcoal 3-piece suit, standing between Man 1's legs, looking up with obsessive golden eyes, hands gripping Man 1's waist. Background is a high-tech, dimly lit executive office with city skyline at night visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Rain on glass, tension, dramatic lighting, cinematic composition, sharp focus, intricate details.